Greetings. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Web Application Firewall, Implementing and Managing Your Web Security. My name is Rochelle Wheeler, and I am joined today by Kurt Young. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. There is a questions panel located in the lower portion of your screen. You may need to either expand that panel by clicking the plus sign or the down arrow to see the full view. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. However, you are encouraged to submit those questions via the questions panel at any time. Today's session is being recorded and a recording will be made available at its conclusion. I will now hand today's presentation over to Kurt.
Well, thanks, Rochelle. Hey, everyone. Well, thanks for joining the webinar today on the LoadMaster Web Application Firewall. Again, I'm Kurt Young. I'm a Principal Solutions Engineer here at Progress. We got a lot to cover, so we'll just jump right into it. So, looking at the agenda, I think we have a lot of current LoadMaster customers or a lot of customers that are familiar with LoadMaster and a few on the call that may not be as familiar. So I'll try to kind of address both audiences here. But we're going to start off with a quick one-slide overview about Progress Camp LoadMaster for those who are less familiar. And then we're going to jump into encryption on the LoadMaster and how that fits into the web application firewall story here. Next, we're going to talk about the LoadMaster Web Application Firewall, and then how to gain insights into what the WAF is doing through logging and other means there. And then we're going to wrap up with LoadMaster 360, and more specifically about the new Enhanced WAF functionality. So you want to make sure you stick around for that and kind of see how we're providing insights and tuning for WAF. So just to let everyone know, I only have a few slides today for the webinar, since I really thought it would be more beneficial for everyone to kind of see how we're implementing WAF on the LoadMaster. So we'll have a lot more demonstrations going into the different UIs, looking at LoadMaster, looking at LoadMaster 360. So again, hope that's okay with everyone. So here's the one-slide overview on LoadMaster. So of course, as I'm sure everyone knows, right, we are a load balancer or application delivery controller, to be more precise, since we're doing a lot more than just load balancing traffic. Providing the availability, the scalability, performance, and security. From the availability side, right, making the applications more resilient in the event of server failure or in some cases complete site failure, right, and having the ability to do that with our global server load balancing capabilities. But obviously that's not the focus of this conversation, so we can save that for another webinar. Scalability, right, to handle traffic load for those published applications, having the ability to add additional application servers behind the load balancer to distribute traffic across them, right, and be able to support the traffic load. Performance with caching and compression capabilities, as well as doing things like SSL offloading, as we'll discuss in a bit more detail when we get into encryption. And then, of course, security, right, which is the topic of today's discussion around WAF. But there's other capabilities such as pre-authentication. There's some zero trust configurations that could be applied to the LoadMaster to provide this kind of layered security approach to help protect published applications. So let's talk a bit about encryption. And more specifically about decryption, right? So I use this slide a lot in webinars to really explain the importance of having the LoadMaster in what we call this privileged position on the network, right? In between the users accessing the application and the application servers themselves. So hopefully everyone, has their applications encrypted, right? Regardless of how critical those applications are for supporting the business. These days, everything, right, should be encrypted. But with traffic that's encrypted, right, we're quite limited to what we can do with the traffic, right? Since we can't see into the traffic to take any kind of action on it. And that's where having the ability to terminate the traffic on the LoadMaster really is so important when it comes to helping protect the application. So by terminating the traffic on the LoadMaster, we can decrypt the traffic, right? Take whatever action we need to on the traffic, right? And then either re-encrypt it back to those application servers, or we could send that traffic back unencrypted, right? Do that offloading, which we just saw on the prior slide around performance optimization. But there's a bit more we can do around encryption and decryption on the LoadMaster. So again, let's kind of jump into LoadMaster and kind of take a look at some things here. So for existing customers, obviously this is the LoadMaster user interface. For non-customers, this may be a new view for you. But what I want to do is I want to start off with certificates and security. So here, this is where we can kind of upload our certificates to the LoadMaster to do that termination and decryption of the traffic. So you can just upload your certificates here. We have the ability to also do, if you're using Acme certificates, like Let's Encrypt, and we actually have DigiCert in beta. So if you are using those type of certificates, you can leverage them here on the LoadMaster as well. Going up to the actual virtual services, which is the actual published applications that we have a demo application published through here's wiki site, and we're generating traffic to this site, and we obviously are sending the traffic over this encrypted port of HTTPS 443, but we also have this redirect port of 80, so any connections that come in on 80, it'll automatically be forced to go over the 443 virtual service. So if I go in and modify this, and there's a bunch of different settings that we have, but we'll focus on the topic at hand around SSL. So I drop down SSL properties here. The first thing you want to do is you want to enable the SSL acceleration. That's going to allow that connections to terminate here on the LoadMaster. Now we can click this box to re-encrypt that traffic. Obviously we have it unchecked, so we're doing that SSL offloading here. But again, simple enough to just enable that if you need that end-to-end encryption for your application. Then we have the ability to limit the supported protocols, right, from SSL v3 up to TLS 1.3. And with this, right, we can also, like I said, we're limiting just everything TLS 1.3, but if you need some backward compatibility, you can enable other protocols such as, TLS 1.2 or 1.1. But in addition to these supported protocols, we also have the ability to limit the ciphers being used within those protocols. So here you can see TLS 1.3. There's just a few ciphers available that you can enable or disable. Now, if we were to enable, say, TLS 1.2, we'll see we have a lot more things to consider here. So first is the cipher sets that we have. So we have some pre-canned out-of-the-box cipher sets that you can actually select. In this case, I have best practices, which has a subset of ciphers that are available in that cipher set. We also can go in and modify cipher sets. So in here, I can, this is the assigned ciphers for best practices. If I wanted to reduce the number of ciphers being used in a given cipher set, I can just kind of reduce these, drag these over here, and then I can just, create a new cipher set that'll use this new subset of ciphers. So a lot of kind of flexibility here to kind of, I guess, reduce the amount of protocols, reduce the amount of ciphers being used to help lock down this application that's being published. But all of this really comes down to the need to enable this SSL acceleration so we can do WAF, right? That's really kind of the whole importance of this. So any customers that are using LoadMaster today and not terminating connections, and we're just passing that encrypted traffic through and really just kind of doing the load balancing, this is going to be a step that you're going to need to take in order to enable WAF and utilize it. So let's go back to our slide here. So that's kind of on the whole encryption piece. So now we can kind of get more into the LoadMaster WAF. So again, I think most people are familiar with what a web application firewall does. So we'll just kind of go through this quickly, and then we'll jump into back into the LoadMaster and start looking at how to set it up and some configuration that you can do for it. So LoadMaster WAF is includes some predefined rules around OWASP and a core rule set. For those who are not familiar with OWASP, right, they're a nonprofit foundation that simply, works to improve the security of software, right? There's the OWASP Top 10, which are the most common vulnerabilities, and they're updated based on the greatest current risks out there. Now, we can also customize WAF rules, add custom rules for specific use cases to help identify vulnerabilities, as well as actually use custom rules, and we'll look at this later, about identifying false positives, making sure that we're allowing that legitimate traffic through the WAF to make sure that those users can access the applications. So with that, you can jump back into the LoadMaster and have a look. So first, I'm going to start off with some global settings here. In the navigation, we have our web application firewall, and we have access settings. So this is where we have the ability to download and install updates for the WAF. So we have, you can enable daily updates, and then you can also schedule when you want those updates to be installed at a certain time. You can also download immediately and actually install immediately if you want. You can see here that we are running the OWASP CRS version 3.3.4. And then down here, we also have a list of IP addresses that we'll actually talk about a little bit later about IP reputation. So this is a list of IP addresses that are, I guess you can say, less trustworthy out there, and we can actually enable IP reputation to block traffic based on that. The exporting of logs. So we have the ability to export WAF logs to remote systems. So you can go ahead and set the remote URI, username and password or token. We have the ability to have different formats. So we have native available. You can send it in a JSON format. And we also have Splunk, where you can send traffic to Splunk as well. If you are running Splunk in the environment and you want to feed the WAF logs to these remote systems. Custom rules, I mentioned before. Here's where you can add custom rules to the LoadMaster, right? And have the ability to add and remove these for each of the virtual services that you're running on the LoadMaster. Then we have a false positive analysis here, and we'll jump into this a little bit later as we go through the virtual service configuration. But if you have multiple virtual services, you can go ahead and kind of select them from here if you want to go through the false positive analysis on the LoadMaster across multiple virtual services. So going back up to the virtual services. So under, we'll go back into modify, and under WAF, right, we can see here, first thing, of course, you'd want to do is enable it. So you just enable it from here. We have this audit mode that's available. Now, for the most part, you can do relevant or all. For the most part, you really should have this turned off. I mean, it's great. It provides a lot of information for troubleshooting and things like that. But you typically don't want to be running this all the time. It's just going to generate a lot of logs. So if you're not needing to use the audit and get that information, you can just keep it off. The anomaly scoring threshold. So this is a very important setting when it comes to how the WAF is going to behave, right? So for each request, like every triggered detection is going to raise the anomaly score, right? And if the anomaly score hits this limit, the request is going to be blocked, right? So most rules have a score of about 5, right? So in this demonstration, right, we wanted to generate some block requests, so we set it low. The default is at 100. You can actually go as high as 10,000 if you wanted to. So you can again adjust this and lower it as you feel comfortable to block the traffic that you want to block. So if you wanted to kind of turn this on, you could throw up to 10,000, right? You're not going to get a whole lot of blocked traffic with that. The paranoia level, I'm going to talk about that when we go into advanced settings. Below here are the actual rules that are enabled for this virtual service. As you can see here, we have our custom rules. Like I said, you can enable. We have a few workloads down here that you could enable as well. But within each of these, right, you can enable or disable rules depending on the application that's being published. So you get really kind of granular as far as what you want to have run against the traffic and what you don't. The hourly alert notification setting here. So what this is going to do is going to trigger a syslog notification if the number of incidents within an hour equal or exceed what's set here. 0, it's turned off, so we're not using that right now in this environment. And then here's that IP reputation blocking, right? So we were talking about before with that list of IPs. You can enable that here within the WAF settings. So under advanced settings over here, we provide the ability to enable the inspection of post requests, right? So if enabled, we can see that some other information pops up here. So whether you want to JSON parser, an XML, or some other content types, you can enable that. You also have the ability to process the HTTP responses coming back from the servers, from the real servers, back to the client. So if you enable this, we'll see we have these audit parts coming up where we have the response headers being added to or being looked at. Now, this blocking paranoia level that we saw on the prior screen. You have an option of 1 through 4 for the paranoia level. And 1 being really kind of the most common WAF rules that are going to be used to inspect the traffic. And as you move up, you're going to begin to add more WAF rules that should be included to inspect the traffic. But you really want to make sure that you're monitoring the WAF behavior, really at any setting, right? Whether you're 1 through 4, but certainly more as you start adding, you start moving up and adding more rules, since you might have a more likelihood that you may be blocking some legitimate traffic as you increase the paranoia level, as you would imagine. The executing paranoia level here, this is going to allow us the same thing. It's got 1 through 4. What this is going to do, it's really kind of to enable the execution of those different additional rules without actually blocking the traffic. So it's a way to see, kind of what would happen if you decided to increase the blocking level from 2 to 3 or from 3 to 4 or something like that. Excuse me. We also have some limits here that can be set both for regular expression processing, right? PCRE engine and the JSON parser limit. So these I typically don't really change these much. I mean, there's a lot of settings you can do between here. There's I forget the I forget what the actual maximum is here, but you want to be careful not to increase it too much since it will affect the performance. You don't want to also set it too low where you may not be capturing those actual threats in the environment. Down at the bottom here, we have countries that you can actually block entire countries right away. So we'll actually look at this a little bit more when we start looking at LoadMaster 360 and the ability to identify countries in a much easier way. And I'll show you that a little bit later in the presentation. Going back around false positives. So if we go back to that false positive analysis, so here we can actually see a lot of the rules. Like I said, we're generating some traffic to this system, which is actually generating a bunch of different kind of malicious traffic, identifying as malicious traffic to the application. So we're actually doing some blocking. We have some false positives here. And again, there's a lot to, as you can see here, a lot that's included in this information, right? And for those that are not, WAF experts, right, more novice, it may be a little bit seem like a daunting task to go through here to identify what's actually happening and whether or not we should be creating some custom rules to prevent these false positives or not. Again, and I would agree with that. And when we start looking at LoadMaster 360 and what we're providing with the enhanced WAF capabilities, we'll see what we've done there to really make this much easier for you. But to look at it here, we'll take this one as an example. We see here that there was a detection of SQL injection based on keyword alter or union. So we can see here that within this args q parameter, there was this 12 Union Street found, right? So since obviously Union is in the parameter that's being passed, it was flagged as a potential false positive. Now, this could very well be a very legitimate, action that someone took. So it really shouldn't be anything that we really need to worry about in this case. It's a very reasonable again, search if someone was doing something like that. So we could actually take this and create a custom rule for that, which will obviously not have that trigger again in the future. And again, we'll talk a lot more about that as well later on in the demonstration. Now, you can also come down here and download the events to get them into a file. But again, as you can see, there's a lot of information in here to parse through. And if you really understood all of this, you could actually leverage this to start making some decisions about the WAF. But again, we've simplified this quite a bit in LoadMaster 360. So we just looked a little bit about logging, but let's go a little bit more into details of going into the system configuration, system log files. We have the WAF event log files here, which gives us a lot more information, as you can see. It's a lot of information to digest. But again, all the information is here. If you did want to go through here and actually use this to make some decisions about what's happening in the environment. Now, there's other ways of doing the export of logs. You can use things like, in this example, elk stack. So here we've exported logs to elk stack. We can make these kind of dashboards that provide some information about top 10 attacks, top 10 URIs, attacker IP address, kind of dashboard, as well as the WAF syslog that gives you all information about the different rules that are being triggered and the messages and the severity and things like that. And obviously, how many times it happened, and of course, those client IP addresses. So obviously, this is much easier to digest those logs to start understanding a little bit more about what the WAF is doing. But there's actually even better ways to do it, and that really comes down to LoadMaster 360. So for those who are not familiar with this, LoadMaster 360, it is a SaaS offering we launched last year, and again, we'll jump into the UI bit and start kind of clicking around and looking at it. But what it delivers is kind of the way to it's really a way to help organizations kind of get that unified view, visualization, and help troubleshoot issues as it pertains to the application delivery in their environment through LoadMaster. So from certificate lifecycle management, being able to kind of see, certificates, whether they're when they're expiring, to make sure you get ahead of them to get them renewed, so you don't have any outages due to expired certificates. You have the ability to get application insights on application analytics. You have incident management to help identify issues quickly with context-rich information about the incidents in the environment. And then, of course, you have application security, which is the focus here. Configuration management, as you can see here, it's currently in the works. It's coming soon. I don't have an exact date on when that's going to be released, but you certainly want to stay tuned for that. From the Enhanced WAF perspective, again, we have these new capabilities within LoadMaster 360 to really help organizations understand how the WAF is performing, right? So you can visualize what's happening on a virtual service level, right? Or you can actually look at what's happening across all the published applications on the LoadMaster. We have the smart rule tuning, right, to reduce those false positives that we were looking at before in LoadMaster, to kind of really just kind of simplify that process to understand what's the best approach to take in order to remove those false positives and make sure that those that legitimate traffic is being sent back to the LoadMaster, or back to the application through the LoadMaster. So let's jump into LoadMaster 360. So this is the LoadMaster 360 interface. Again, it's a SaaS offering that we have here, and there's a lot of information that you can gather from the dashboard as far as the application health and LoadMaster health. And again, we have other webinars that we've done to kind of take everyone through LoadMaster 360 from kind of A to Z. But in this one, right, let's focus on the WAF enhancements. So if I go down to this wiki test LoadMaster that we were on before, again, we can see some information about the health of this particular LoadMaster, some information about it. But up here we have WAF Insights. So what this is going to provide is a dashboard to give us this overview on what's going on from a WAF perspective here. So starting at the top, well, first off, we have the ability to filter this, right, by the hour. It's by the default 7 days, but you can kind of drill in a little bit more to see, or even go out further to the last 30 days. So we could see the top executed rules. And this one here, this is the one that we were looking at before, and we'll look at a little bit later on, this 942.361. We have top blocked requests by IP address, a list of all the different IP addresses that are accessing it, that are being blocked, as well as blocked requests by URL. We also have these summaries over here of really total requests, blocked requests, and we can see the percentage here, under 4% of total requests are being blocked. And then we have our false positive number in the past 24 hours of 44. I'm going to come back to this false positive activity because we'll finish up there. But down here, we have events by location for this LoadMaster. So as we were talking about before, blocking that traffic by country, we have this list of regions over here where we can go into, and we can drill into each of the regions that have been identified of traffic being blocked. So if I were to go in and I'll select South America as an example, and we'll let this load, and we can see here that that we have 2 locations within South America that we see a lot of traffic being blocked. Brazil, Chile's only got 1 connection being blocked, but Brazil's got 457 requests, right? So if there was an application that you say there's no reason why anyone from Brazil should be accessing this application, or from what other country or region, you can go ahead and block that traffic on the LoadMaster, right? So where we were before, going back to the LoadMaster, if we were to go back to the virtual service, we can go into advanced settings, and then we can just kind of scroll down here, right? And we'll just take Brazil, and we can just block Brazil altogether from accessing this application if we wanted to. So very helpful from when you're looking at the, where your traffic is coming from. Is it expected to be coming from these locations and things like that? Obviously, if you're global and stuff, then it may not be as helpful, but certainly for certain applications and in locations that you may have for internal systems, right? And then of course we have private IP addresses as well, which we're tracking. So going back up to the false positive activity. So here we have a list of those 44 false positives, since we're generating a lot of traffic. You may have, less false positives in your environment, depending on your application and the traffic that's being sent to it. Again, the traffic generator that we're running against this, we wanted to make sure that we were getting some things populated here. So we have this WAF rule tuning button here. So this is a list we can kind of go through and see what's happening on here. But if we go into this WAF rule tuning, and I'll go ahead and select this one here, which is that one that we're looking at on the LoadMaster around that 12 Union Street. So again, it gives you a lot of information about the rule that is being triggered and why in the input here. But we also break it down into, we parse it into a kind of a more readable format, so you can kind of see what the rule ID is, the message, which again is that SQL injection based on alter or union, the parameter that was being that was found in, and then the data, which is the 12 Union Street, which was found within that parameter. There's timestamp, the IP address of the client that accessed it, the URL that was hit, and the actual virtual service of the application that was hit. So with this information, down here we have this ability to create these rule exclusions, right? So we can actually, we say this is a legitimate, reasonable request that's been asked through this web page. We don't want this to be blocked for any reason, right? We want to make sure that we're allowing this traffic through. So we could very simply, with this startup by rule, we could disable the entire rule, which of course is going to solve that problem. But really the question comes down to, is that really something we want to do, is disable that rule on the LoadMaster altogether, right? Obviously, if later on down the road, there is some sort of SQL injection attack being made against the system, we don't want the rule to be disabled, right? We're not going to catch that. That's really not going to help us much from protecting the application. So now there may be other rules that this might be the best option to disable the rule completely on it. But in this case, I'm going to say that's probably not the best case to delete this rule. But if we wanted to, we can copy this to the clipboard. We can create a exclusion rule, and we can add that rule to the LoadMaster custom rules. We have other options available. So we can actually do startup by target. So what this is going to do is going to change the rule a little bit. So here it's going to look at this rule, and it's also going to look at this parameter, which is the args queue that we actually found this data in. So here we can actually create a rule that will block, or we'll set an exclusion which won't block the traffic based on this rule and this parameter. So again, that's going to make it a little bit better, where if there was some kind of a SQL injection elsewhere in the environment, it would still get triggered and it would still get blocked. We can actually go into runtime by rule, right? Which actually will change the rule a bit more. Here we're actually looking at the request URI and saying, well, now we want to create a rule that begins with, or actually has this URL or URI path, right, for this PHP page and this rule ID. So now only this page would we set the exclusion for that rule. So again, we're getting a little bit more granular on that. Finally, the last one is runtime by target. So here we're now looking at the page, right? We're looking at the rule and we're looking at the parameter. So now we're saying that it's on this page, this parameter, and this rule. Only then we're going to set the exclusion for this SQL injection attack based on the keyword of alter or union. So again, there's different options here, right? Helping you again for someone that's not a WAF expert, right? That is used to writing these mod security rules, on a daily basis, and perhaps you are interested in helping protect your application, but a little hesitant because of not having this type of skill. This will, of course, help you create these rules and help you manage that WAF in a much easier way. Let's go back to. So I guess the to kind of wrap things up here, and some takeaways, right? So if you are publishing applications through LoadMaster today, or considering introducing LoadMaster to your environment, to publish applications and looking to improve the security posture, you really should consider enabling WAF. The WAF, right, is not really kind of a set it and forget it capability, right? So there is some tweaking that needs to happen, as we saw going through the LoadMaster configuration, to help optimize the security and also prevent false positives, right? So it's not just a checkbox and you walk away and everything is secure. And the last is really this LoadMaster 360, right? Making it much easier for kind of any operator, and whether you're a novice or expert, to really get a better understanding of how the WAF is behaving. And obviously, LoadMaster 360 delivering much more than just this WAF capability. And as we're adding more and more functionality to LoadMaster 360, just really kind of gaining all the benefits there as well. So we could open up to some Q&A. My board here. So let's see what we have for questions. We have a question here. Is the WAF available on all LoadMasters? So yes, the WAF is available on all LoadMasters, whether you're doing hardware or virtual or cloud. The only thing with WAF is that depending on the subscription that you have, whether we have standard, enterprise, and enterprise plus, the WAF is available in enterprise plus. So anyone that wants to leverage WAF, enterprise plus is the way to go in order to enable WAF. Another question here. Is there guidance available for creating WAF rules? Okay, so obviously there's some guidance with LoadMaster 360, as we just pointed out. But if you were looking to create your own custom rules, whether maybe that you weren't looking to do exclusions for false positives, but actually looking to create some custom rules to help protect your environment, we do have some documentation on our support site on our docs.progress.com about writing rules. I think we probably have some videos out there as well, demos and things like that around creating custom rules. So anyone that's interested in that is you kind of find that stuff. But we do have documentation that is provided as well. So, okay, I have a question here. If the load balancing and DNS records are managed by Cloudflare, can we benefit from Progress WAF? So if, so obviously the traffic needs to be going through the LoadMaster. So we would need to be publishing the application. So in order, like I said prior, we would need to be able to decrypt that traffic, get into that traffic, see the traffic, and then take action on it. So we definitely, as long as the application is being sent through the LoadMaster, we are able to you're able to benefit from the WAF. Another question here: are the trial available that we can get access to? So yes, we do have a trial, a LoadMaster trial that you can get access to, and the trial is does have an Enterprise Plus type of license on it for 30 days, so you can deploy that and enable WAF and kind of kick the tires on that. So, and Rochelle, maybe we could put a link in there for folks to, if they can access the trial if you're looking to, and even for existing customers, right? If you wanted to, maybe you were still a little hesitant to enable WAF on your LoadMaster and wanted to get a little more comfortable with it, you can spin up a trial to kind of get more comfortable with making some of those settings, and maybe even generating traffic through it to just get comfortable with the ongoing kind of maintenance of it before you enable it in your environment. So that's another option as well. Any more questions?
Yes.
Yes. Can you generate an export report for WAF Insight? I'm not sure if that means through LoadMaster 360. No, there's no way to export that dashboard or any of those reports today that I'm aware of. I'm not aware if there's a way you can export a report simply. I could be wrong though. That I could be wrong about that. But I'm not 100% sure about that. I'd have to get back to you on that one about the generating reports. That's something that right. I definitely understand the reasoning behind being able to provide that report for insights to executive teams and whatnot. So I'll get back to you on that one. Okay, there's another one here. Does LoadMaster 360 connect to your LoadMasters on premises? And how does that work? Okay, that's a great question. So yes, it does. So regardless of where your LoadMaster is running, you can connect your LoadMaster to LoadMaster 360. And the way that we're doing that is we're using this concept of a connector, which is basically a very lightweight virtual appliance, for better term, that you deploy in your environment. So you would whether download it as for VMware or Hyper-V or whatever, you deploy it in your virtual environment, and that connector connects outbound to the SaaS LoadMaster 360 SaaS offering. So what happens is the LoadMasters that are running in that environment are feeding the connector information, and then the connector is sending that information up to the LoadMaster 360 SaaS offering. And again, we do have connectors for some cloud environments as well, so you can actually deploy that in cloud. So LoadMaster 360 FedRAMP certified. That I should know the answer to this question, and if I had one of my pre-sales guys on there, he would know. I don't know I don't want to give you the wrong answer on that one. I'm not sure whether we are. I think we are, but I'm not 100% sure on whether we got FedRAMP certified on LoadMaster 360.
And Kurt, you can follow up with Michael.
Yeah, well, I'll follow up with Michael on that. But again, if we had our government guy on the call, he would be able to answer that right away. So we'll get back to you on that, Michael. I know the conversation has been have been conversations about that early on. I'm not sure if we ever did get certified on that though. Is there any other questions? So I'm not seeing any other questions. Are you seeing anything else?
No, I don't see any additional questions at this time.
Okay. Well, I hope it was helpful for everyone on the call today. Again, for those who are considering enabling WAF. So obviously, if there's any additional questions you may have, feel free to reach out to us.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And as I mentioned, we will send out an email containing a recording of this webinar, so feel free to take another look. If you like, within the announcement section, I placed a link to our LoadMaster 30-day free trial, so feel free to try us out if you don't already have LoadMaster. And we look forward to working with you or communicating with you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.